It's time for radio that's fit for human consumption. The BiteandBooze.com radio show is on Talk 107.3 FM now. Here's your host, Jay Ducote.
And welcome, everybody, to another edition of the BiteandBooze.com radio show, proudly presented by Calandro's Supermarket. I'm really excited to be here today because I've got a couple fantastic guests in the studio with me, and we're going to be talking about cuisine all over South Louisiana, specifically looking at the Lafayette region with Anna Purdy, who writes for the Independent Weekly in Lafayette, and then the Baton Rouge area with Nils Breckoff, who's producing the show Food Louisiana that airs on Cox Channel 4. And Nils, I've had the pleasure of being on a couple different segments of your show, talking about my blog, talking about the radio show, and then the documentary that I'm filming with Tommy Talley as well. How's your experience with Food Louisiana going so far?
It's been fantastic so far. The response has been tremendous. Our second episode aired this week, and it started to take off from there. And it's basically all about anything happening in the South Louisiana food scene. Absolutely.
And Anna, how's everything in Lafayette these days?
Everything in Lafayette is kicking and doing extremely well. The locavore, a locally purveyed scene is really, really gaining momentum.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I really appreciate about Lafayette's food scene right now, and that there's a couple spots in Baton Rouge that are starting to jump on that trend, and it's really, it's a national trend that's going on, but I think you still find it in select markets where it's really starting to develop and grow. And Louisiana is we've always had a pride for our local food, Louisiana seafood and Louisiana wild game and the produce, and we come from people that truly lived off the land, so having pride in the food that comes from that land is something that's always just kind of been ingrained in us. But now it's kind of taking it to a whole nother level with this kind of locavore thing, and people really being excited to promote what they're eating that is grown locally or produced locally.
And not wanting to have that, for a long time there's been a separation between the consumer and where their food came from.
Absolutely.
And they're starting to realize that you really need to know just not how it's prepared, where did it come from, and all that care that goes with it.
Yeah. So Nils, are you seeing that some in the Baton Rouge area?
Yeah, most definitely. One of our big focuses is local food and local producers, and I think that a lot of people here probably didn't know about that. So we try to spread that message through farmers markets and to talking to chefs and what local ingredients they're sourcing and what's available to you out there in the restaurants.
Yeah, and the farmers market here does a phenomenal job of getting farmers from the greater Baton Rouge area and then some to come in. And man, the greens that they have right now, the Ponchatoula strawberries that are there right now, all of that kind of stuff. And then there's always kind of those standards with the local honey and local bakeries bringing their bread and things like that. And so you really get some artisan foods and just some products that you can't find at a big chain superstore or something like that. That's something else that I really enjoy about Calandro's Supermarket that happens to sponsor this show. But one of the reasons that they really fit well with what I do is that they specialize in those gourmet and hard to find items and locally produced items. Is that kind of, do y'all have a good farmers market scene in Lafayette?
We have an excellent farmers market scene, and not only that, but it's become very very standard for the sort of the urban farming. People who live in the center of Lafayette are keeping bees in their backyard.
Yeah.
And they're getting into the farmers markets, but we probably have farmers market 3 to 4 days a week.
Yeah, it's 3 days a week here in Baton Rouge right now. It's one organization that organizes all three of those. Is that how it is in Lafayette? Is there kind of one central organization?
Well, they all talk to each other, but there's not one central organization yet. A lot of the stuff that I get, living in Lafayette, I am closer to a rural area.
Right.
So for me, like for instance, I just heard about a guy who lives in Franklin, Louisiana that slaughters his own pigs.
Yeah.
So now I have a line on this, and I can go, that's mainly how I found most of my produce and stuff like that.
Yeah, if you're just joining us, I'm Jay Ducote, host of BiteandBooze.com radio show here on Talk 107.3 FM. Also available on iTunes. If you just log into iTunes and search Bite and Booze, you can find the podcast there and subscribe to it. Also on the website, BiteandBooze.com itself, there's a link at the top for the radio show, and you can click on that and get some more details and find all the archived episodes and everything else there. Joined in studio by Anna Purdy, who's coming from Lafayette, and Nils Breckoff from right here in Baton Rouge, and just enjoying food and conversation. So Anna, what's the what are some of the chefs in Lafayette that you really feel like are doing some great things?
It's hard to pick a few. I think Mary and Nathan, who own the St. Street Inn, they're a new
I've
restaurant.
heard about that one.
They've
Haven't
just
been.
they just opened up, and actually they used to work at my paper. They left the paper and opened up their own place, and everything there is very fresh. It has a very modern bistro style. They have, the big whiteboard. You ordering off of the board. They usually have the fresca of the day made with fruit juice, locally purveyed. It's excellent. Also, someone that Manny Agello from Jolie's, who is just fantastic. I can't say enough about the stuff that he's been doing.
Yeah, Jolie's Bistro is that's kind of been my go-to place in Lafayette lately, just because I know it and I know how much I like it, and I know how much I really appreciate what Manny's doing over there on the bar, on the kitchen side, but as well as the bar scene. I mean, they make some great cocktails and things like that as well. The restaurant that I would compare that to in Baton Rouge right now is Beau Soleil, and Anna, we're actually going to go over there a little bit later and check out what they have. Monday through Friday, from 3 to 6, they do a happy hour of 50-cent char-grilled oysters and all sorts of other stuff. But it's the kind of place you walk in, and there's actually a chalkboard on the left, right when you walk in the door, that lists every different farm and provider and producer of local products that they use in their restaurant, in the kitchen. So it's pretty cool for sure. Nils, you actually went over and taped some of Food Louisiana in Lafayette, right?
Yeah, we sure did. We were there last week, and man, what an experience that was, because we were able to meet with Manny, who's the chef there, as you mentioned earlier, and from the ownership to the chef to everyone there, we even met with one of their farmers who was there. From top to bottom, that commitment to locally grown, fresh organic produce was there, and it was very, very impressive. Of course, the food's fantastic, which that as well. But
yeah,
that was our maiden voyage to Lafayette, which is an area that we intend to explore a whole lot. So right. It was just a really great experience for us to check out that place.
And I'll just throw this out there to both of y'all, and feel free to kind of answer as you can. Just in relation to food trends that go on the national level, I think a lot of times, food specifically or cocktails or anything you want to look at like that. But, the national trends seem to kind of develop in a New York or a San Francisco or LA, and then kind of work their way into the rest of the country from there. And that's normal and natural. And so a lot of times Louisiana seems to lag behind some of the popular trends out there. But I also feel like Louisiana just has a unique enough culinary scene where we have the ability to set some of those trends ourselves. Do y'all have any thoughts about some of the food trends that you're seeing going on in other parts of the country that might be on their way here, or any food trends that maybe we've been doing all along or started here that we might be able to export?
I would start with andouille. I was never able. I mean, I've lived in Baltimore and Minneapolis, and I was never able to find andouille anywhere. Really, I don't even think I could really find it in Baton Rouge and New Orleans so much that I knew 10 years ago.
Right.
Now, my friends in Minneapolis get it regularly.
Wow.
And they get it from Poche's, which is in Lafayette.
That's
so
fantastic.
Yeah, it's really neat. I actually think that yes, there have been some bigger trends that start outside and work their way in, like fusion cuisine when that was huge.
Right.
Really, I think that. It sounds boasting. I think Louisiana sets the trend. I think we do. I think our cuisine is a lot stronger. I think we have a much stronger identity. I think we have the most unique way of doing things, and I think our techniques are going out.
Yeah. Well, I definitely think that that's true as far as the cooking technique point of view, and just the press that Louisiana cuisine has gotten lately, and the TV appearances and the filming that's going on in our state, and the exposure that Louisiana's getting, I definitely think just kind of helps put our cuisine on the map, and people say, man, I really want to eat that. Nils, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing that you just brought up. Right now, there's an unprecedented amount of television production taking place here. So I think that the things that we have to offer are getting exposed to a larger audience now than probably ever before. And so consequently, that demand is going up. So even now when I'm watching national cooking shows and things like that, you're starting to see more and more Louisiana ingredients showing up in there. I've seen more recipes featuring boudin than I have in a very long time, or tasso showing up in various places like that. And to me, it's just shows, what an impact. It's things that we've always had here that maybe not everyone else has known about. And, now that that's getting exposed to a larger audience, it's going to grow in popularity.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that. And Anna, you mentioned andouille. I think boudin's kind of had that same
absolutely
surgence.
And turducken. Turducken has been the one that catches everybody on, because, well, okay, it's unusual.
Yeah.
But people, they love the uniqueness of it. And I've had friends tell me, some friends of mine in New York try to make their own turducken.
Yeah.
Just being inspired by it. Mm-hmm.
Well, and some of the trends that I think I was thinking about that really started outside and are now coming in. We talked about the food trucks a little bit. Those seem to really, they've blown up in Baton Rouge here in the last 2 years. New Orleans is still trying to figure out how they can grow their food truck scene because they're so limited in what they can do in the Central Business District and the French Quarter and things like that. So they're having a harder time just getting into those population density areas. Lafayette's starting to have a few as well, but that's really kind of a national trend that Louisiana is now starting to catch up on. There's a couple in Lafayette now, right? There's
a couple. There is Viva la Waffle and Bon Repas, and there's going to be a few others. Some guy contacted me. Some guy from Jersey is opening up a hot dog food truck.
Right on.
So yeah, it's going to be really cool, and we have the room, we have the area to do it, and it's very, very popular. I mean, if that's the thing, if restaurants are all about location, what's better than be able to roll around at your location?
Yeah. And Nils, you filmed a couple segments, one for the Curbside Truck and one for Ignatius Riley's, both here in Baton Rouge. What is it about those food trucks and the chefs on those trucks that kind of drew you to say, my first couple shows that we're doing for Cox Channel 4 for Food Louisiana, I want to feature these trucks?
Well, I think that they're hot right now, for one. But to me, especially in Baton Rouge, we're blessed because we have such a variety of different types of products you can get. I mean, in a lot of places, your food trucks are just your standard, lunch fare, just burgers, hot dogs, things like that. But I mean, here you can get crepes. The things that Ignatius is doing, fresh handmade pastas. And a lot of times it's almost higher end stuff than you can get in a brick and mortar restaurant. So to me, it's just the ability to kind of quickly get really gourmet quality food, generally at a really good price as well.
Yeah, and I think that's what I really like about what the trucks are doing the most is it's taking a chef that would be fully qualified to open their own brick and mortar restaurant, but that might not have the resources to do so. And they want to be creative. They want to have that kitchen where they can do anything that they want. They don't want to be in a corporate chef environment, a corporate kitchen. They don't want to just be cooking somebody else's menu. They want to be inventive. They want to create. And it gives them a perfect opportunity to just jump in a mobile kitchen and do whatever the heck they want and be creative with food and really explore their own palates and explore, what their customers might want. And they can take some chances because they're just running a special of the day on a mobile food truck. And if it hits, awesome. They can put it on their menu. If it's a miss, no worries. You come back with something else the next day. But just that mentality of it. And then obviously the incorporation of the social media and the way that they're able to market themselves and promote where they're going to be, but move around and really hit different people up. And it's really just a pretty genius model that's has the ability to work now, whereas a couple years ago it really wouldn't have.
No, I agree with that. And I think people who are not as educated in what food trucks are about, they don't know that these food trucks are liable to the same stringent health code guidelines. It's exactly the same as any brick and mortar kitchen, but they're able to roll around and they are able to take more chances, and they are for the more, I think, adventurous eaters. People who are really curious, who want to have an unusual special that day. I'm not really sure what I'm in the mood for. Hit up a food truck. They're gonna solve your problem.
Yeah, absolutely. So was there anything that you had at Curbside or Ignatius Riley's that really...
the list is endless. I mean, the things that Nick Huft is doing at Curbside is borders on genius as far as I'm concerned.
Well, hold that thought. We're going to talk about it after we get done with this break. You're listening to the BiteandBooze.com radio show, proudly presented by Calandro's Supermarket. We'll be right back. And we are back on the BiteandBooze.com radio show, proudly presented by Calandro's Supermarket. Swing by Calandro's on Government or on Perkins at Seagan and get one of those king cakes today. 'Tis the season to be full of king cake, I suppose. King cakes in Lafayette.
Oh yes. So there's always the argument about who makes the best boudin and who makes the best king cake.
Yep.
So far in Lafayette, it's poop hearts and meshes are usually the top two favorites from people.
Yeah, there's plenty of good king cakes to go around in Baton Rouge for sure. Calandro's makes this Mississippi mud pie king cake that took home a prize last year. That was pretty awesome for sure. You're listening to the BiteandBooze.com radio show, proudly presented by Calandro Supermarket. I am your host, Jay Ducote, author of BiteandBooze.com and lover of all food and beverage things here in Baton Rouge. When we went to the break, Nils, we were talking about food trucks in particular, curbside. And do you have a favorite burger at curbside?
So far, it's probably the fried cheeseburger.
Yeah.
Which, unlike what it sounds like, it's not a deep fried cheeseburger. It's just one of his burgers topped with some fried Vermont cheddar that's out of this world.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. He takes that slab of cheese and deep fries it, and then throws that on the burger, and the texture that it gives that cheese with a little bit of a crunch on the outside, but then the cheese itself inside is just gooey and stringy, and oh man, it's delicious.
Yeah, he's really creative, and some of the the things I mentioned, some of the high end ingredients. I saw where recently he's had one with I think it was some brie and onion jam and truffles and things like that. I mean, he's really very talented.
Well, that's definitely one thing that he's been able to do is just he's not just your average burger, because he steps it up multiple notches in his burger making extraordinaire skill set that he has over there, because it's remarkable what he does with the burgers. Man, I would eat those things every Wednesday, every food truck roundup. It's great. All these trucks get together in one spot, and you can get the tacos, you can get Ignatius Riley's. Kicker's Barbecue was there for a long time. A coffee truck would set up every now and then, but curbside always seems to be one of the go-tos for people at those places. But now I this documentary that we're filming, which is really kind of taking me and saying, look, I'm a food writer, radio host. I make a living right now eating and drinking, and that's awesome. That's everybody's dream. But at the same time, I'm 30 years old. I weigh 300 pounds, and if that continues, if I'm 40 years old and weigh 300 plus pounds, and I'm 50 years old and weigh 300 plus pounds, and I continue to just eat and drink and make a living doing it and not taking care of myself at the same time, that it's really not a sustainable business model in the end. So anyway, the food truck roundups, I kind of have to, I've taken back a little bit, just because I can't go eat that food all the time. But we do have a truck in town called Fresh, and they've got a little spot in the Main Street Market as well. That they do some really good, healthy stuff. And Pat Fellows, the owner, is actually going to come be on the radio show next week. And so we'll talk about some of the challenges there, because most of the time people go eat at food trucks, they're not really looking for the freshest, healthiest cuisine. They want a deep fried cheese on a burger.
Comfort food. Yeah,
it is comfort food. Absolutely. Anna, how do you approach that in your life? You're a food writer for a publication in Lafayette. Obviously, you get to go eat a lot of different stuff. You go on assignments to review a restaurant or to eat at a certain thing, or get invited to these wine dinners or things like that. How does kind of your health and being able to sustain that lifestyle just factor into your decision making?
Actually, coordinate in such a way that it benefits what I do when I write. Last night, I was lucky enough to go to a place called LA Seafood House. It's in Scott, Louisiana. It has a Brazilian grill, very unusual. What happens is they bring out 8 different meats on a gigantic 3-foot skewer.
Yeah, so you don't have a choice, really. You got to try every one of them.
Exactly. But here's the great part. The piece of tuna was about the size of, say, a silver dollar.
Right.
But you can have as much as you want, but they come out in smaller portions. But what I do at times like that is I actually bring people with me.
Yeah.
This serves me in a couple ways. 1, I'm not tempted to eat all the food. 2, I have someone else to discuss it with. Because really, I can't go out to eat by myself, and, you need to have, like, seeing a movie by yourself can be kind of a bummer.
Yeah.
You want to be able to discuss it in detail. So I bring people with me, and it makes everybody happy. Everybody gets fat and happy. Because last night he brought out about 35 different dishes. No lie. No one can eat all that, not even for a sumo wrestler. So...
Well, I think there's a couple main points that we're exploring with the documentary. Obviously, the whole point of it is just to be in better health by increasing your level of physical activity and making smarter decisions about what you're putting in your body. So I don't need a fried shrimp po' boy every time I go to a place that serves fried shrimp po' boys. Every now and then I can opt for a grilled shrimp salad or something else. And one of the things that I've had to kind of train myself to think is, especially those things like that, like a fried shrimp po' boy, maybe that would sound really good if I was living in Minnesota right now, but I live in South Louisiana. I've had a bunch of fried shrimp po' boys in my day. They're going to be there for me to eat tomorrow. I don't have to get one all the time just because it's one of my favorite things on a menu per se. And so honestly, I've had to tell myself, like, no, I know what that tastes like. I don't have to have it right now. Nils, do you find just kind of fighting with yourself like that sometimes?
Yeah, I kind of struggle with that, and I guess what I try to do more than anything else is I try to balance it out. Now, unlike the two of you, I work on a variety of projects as a producer, so I'm not into food every single day, where I have to worry about what I'm eating in that respect. But right. I definitely try to kind of counteract it to where if we do have a show taping, and I may overindulge a little bit then, that, I definitely make sure not to skip that following workout or not to, basically just to kind of try to counteract that as best I can.
Yeah, Nils Breckoff in studio with me from Cox Channel 4, producer of the show Food Louisiana, which has just started airing there on Cox Channel 4. Make sure to check them out if you just turn on your DVR and see when Food Louisiana is going to play and record it, or make sure you're in front of the TV at that time and check it out. He's doing a phenomenal job with that show. A couple segments with me on there, which is always fun for me, and then the food trucks, and you did a farmer's market scene. You also recently did a scene where you cooked a roast chicken on camera and just kind of showed a cooking technique there, and that looks like a fairly healthy recipe.
Yeah, it was, and we try to have a wide scope on the show. So, I want to make things that people are going to enjoy, obviously, but that are accessible. With fairly commonly achievable ingredients and techniques and so forth. So that was our maiden voyage on that one.
Yeah, it was a roasted chicken with some red potatoes and butternut squash.
Red bliss potatoes and butternut squash that was basically, just treated with the rub and run through the oven.
You put the rub inside the chicken skin. What was in that rub?
It was a combination of minced garlic, and some sage, salt, and pepper. And basically, you kind of run that underneath the skin so that as the skin renders out, it bastes the meat with the flavor that you have. And then, of course, the outside is seasoned as well. But
Sure.
And that just kind of on a bed of root vegetables. It was potatoes and squash that day, but it really could be anything.
Right. Yeah, and I think I've found that what's even easier for me is making sure that when I do cook at home, that I'm at least thinking about what I'm cooking there. But it's sometimes it's even easier than a restaurant. Yeah, at a restaurant, you've got to actually be disciplined enough to make that decision of, can you opt for a salad that day, or is there a side item that's not deep fried that you can get to go along with whatever fish, or if you're having a fish, to not get the fried fish fillet with the cream sauce on top, and you can get it blackened or grilled, and that's a lot of times a little bit healthier. But cooking at home is what I've really found where I can make a little bit more of a difference. I just actually went to the Thursday farmers market last week and bought some fresh Swiss chard and kale and some Ponchatoula strawberries, and I toasted off some pecans and just kind of mixed all that together with a little sweet garlic vinaigrette, and had a wonderful little salad that I ate for lunch that day. And that's the kind of thing that even before this documentary, I wasn't doing. Like, that wasn't what I would make for myself at home for lunch. Anna, can you relate to this? And when you cook for yourself, because I know you like to cook as well, is that kind of a time where you consciously make an effort to be a little bit healthier?
Honestly, I always have. I grew up very lucky this way. My parents always raised vegetables and herbs and everything else. They have right now, it's about a half-acre garden in their backyard. So I will go and pick out arugula and things like that. And I think I've always just tried to make those healthful decisions, been mindful about if I can see where it's come from, if I can pluck it with my own hands, I feel better about it going into my body.
Right. Yeah, we were having a conversation earlier and talking about you can kind of measure how healthy something is by the amount of waste that you produce to prepare it.
Absolutely.
If you're having to rip off plastic and make multiple trips to the trash can, that and you're throwing away things like wrappers and plastic and containers and things like that, that chances are those products are going to be less healthy than if you're making something where you really don't have any trash at the end of the day. And It's a different way to think about it, because obviously when you go to a store, you get so much prepackaged food and things like that. But if you have more fruits and vegetables, then you're going to have less trips to the trash can. And even when you have those, the onion scraps or the butt end of a celery or something like that, that's all compostable, or you could save it and put it in your stocks and things like that as well.
Absolutely. And people, for instance, most of the frozen dinners that are on the market, whether they say lean or not, look at the sodium content.
Yeah.
It's more sodium than you need in 1 week in one meal, because these are frozen meals and they have to be preserved. So they do it with salt.
Yeah.
And people don't know. And I understand that people who don't cook frequently don't know how easy it can be to take a spaghetti squash, bake it, take it out, throw it with some mushrooms and onions, and eat a whole bowl of it. That's what I had last night.
Yeah. And people don't, I think a lot of times people really only focus on the fat, saturated fat, and maybe calories when they're looking at a nutrition label, and they're not looking at that sodium. But what the sodium does is it retains the blood, the water in our bodies, and you're going to be more bloated and heavier the more salt that you take in. And so honestly, if you just need to lose some water weight, just reducing the salt in your diet is one of the best ways to do that. If you want to drop some pounds quick, just reduce the sodium that you take. And that's actually one of the, we were speaking with Dr. Tim Church over at Pennington Biomedical Research Center, and he's kind of one of these big time Louisiana, loves to eat and drink, but his job is nutrition on top of that. And he's a real big, just, physical fitness is the answer, that exercise is key. It'll kind of, it's calorie count. It's how much are you burning versus how much are you taking in. But he also kind of made point to say, this time of year, it's crawfish season, and people think, crawfish are kind of lean. They're not extremely fatty. The amount of sodium that goes into a Cajun crawfish boil is more than anybody should eat, like you were saying, in a week's time. Mm-hmm. And he was kind of saying, pointing out, like, you don't, obviously with the beer and everything else, but if your crawfish boil is crawfish and vegetables and things, nothing about that is unhealthy. It's the amount of salt that we put in. And he said, get on a scale the day before a crawfish boil, mm-hmm. get on the scale the day after, and you'll see how much water your body is retaining just because of the sodium in that crawfish boil.
What's interesting about that, when you retain water, it's most evident in your hands, and your hands will swell up. And you can actually tell by how when your skin bounces back when you touch it. Uh-huh. So you're eating crawfish boil. It's hot. You have this hot. You have this all over your hands. You don't even notice. Don't even notice that you have this bloat. That's what's kind of interesting about it. But yeah, you have to be mindful. You really do.
But crawfish boils are one of my favorite things ever.
Yeah, I mean, I'll never stop eating it as often as possible. But
also one of the points of the documentary that we're making is I'm not giving this stuff up. If I wanted to give it up, I'd move to Ohio and I just wouldn't even think about cuisine like that. That's not my goal here. My goal is to be able to eat at crawfish boils and drink my beer and do everything else that I'm trying to do, but just be a little bit healthier about it at the same time. Nils?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, one of these deals where if I have to be an all or nothing kind of person, then I'm doomed to failure, so I have to, kind of work it in where, I might go to that crawfish boil, but then might need to kind of back it down, eat a few more salads a week after that, get rid of all that water so I'm not all puffy, but I'm definitely not willing to give up the things that, living here makes so special.
Right on. Well, we're going to take a break, and we will be back to continue more talk of Louisiana cuisine on the BiteandBooze.com radio show. We're even going to taste some of my barbecue sauce next. We'll be right back. We are back on the BiteandBooze.com radio show, proudly presented by Calandro's Supermarket, in studio with Anna Purdy from Lafayette, writes for the Independent Weekly over there, food writer, and you write about some other stuff as well, right, Anna?
I do arts and culture and all that stuff that being the child of professors has trained me to this day to be. So
perfect. Always good for somebody to be able to find a job writing about food and arts and culture.
Yeah, it can actually happen, kids. Yes, yeah. You can actually make a living.
There you go. And Nils Breckoff also in studio, producer for Cox Channel 4, and right now one of the projects that he's getting to work on is a show called Food Louisiana. You can find that on Cox Channel 4. The first 2 episodes are out now, and you can just look on the DVR for the scheduled time. When's the first air time? That's scheduled, right?
Yeah, the new runs usually come out Monday at 5.
Okay.
And there are replays throughout the week, Wednesday and Friday at noon, and Sunday at 4.
Yeah, so plenty of opportunities to catch those episodes and give them a try. And then you can also find them on YouTube as well. Food Louisiana has a page on YouTube, so internet friendly to boot. And then the episodes that I've been in and a couple other little segments I've also put onto my blog, so you can just log into biteandbooze.com and find them that way as well. Anna, you were mentioned during the break about salads and people thinking that sometimes they're healthier than they really are. Yes,
absolutely. Well, first of all, healthy foods don't just start and stop at salads. That somehow came about in the 80s. I don't really know why. But the thing, it's kind of twofold. One, if you hand me a hunk of iceberg and dump some ranch all over it and call it a salad, I don't want to eat that. I'm not going to eat that.
I agree. At least give me blue cheese.
Right, exactly. And that's the thing, too, is that if you're going for a full fat dressing all over it, well, that you're not really saving any calories. It's still 400, 500,
Right.
And you're not really taking in any nutrition, and you're not taking anything that's going to fill you up.
Right.
Versus if you make your own vinaigrette and you have a huge bed of arugula and spinach and you throw in things like strawberries and maybe a few toasted pecans, that's going to fill you up a lot longer, less caloric content, but people just have to feel free to educate themselves on those sort of things.
Yeah. Well, I've gotten into growing some of my own stuff as well recently, and I have nowhere near half an acre or anything like that, or however much you said. Is that right? I've got a small little herb garden, but Harb's Oasis was just a local nursery in town, kind of sponsored my herb garden. They gave me all these herbs to grow with, to grow, and then so I have them to cook with. And so when I'm blogging about needing fresh herbs, I've got it there, and I give them a little shout out that my herb garden is sponsored by them. But they've got some really cool stuff there. But I've got an herb garden full of all sorts of different stuff, and the arugula and then another little lettuce mix just started to grow a lot more. It's like they know spring's coming or something. But even though it's been a fairly mild winter, it hasn't been very cold, so everything's kind of kept growing a little bit. But those two for the first month or two in November and December, they didn't want to grow at all, and I was worried that I just didn't have them in enough light, or they weren't getting enough water, or whatever the case was. And I thought I was doing everything well enough, but now it really seems like they've been sprouting. And then I've got some cilantro as well that's really come on lately. And then I've got some lemon thyme and some French thyme, and both of those have been good the whole time. The rosemary's doing all right. I've also got some oregano and then some flat leaf and some curly parsley, and both of those are starting to really come out pretty well.
And you have a potted garden?
No, all of those are in just more like a flower bed, basically.
Okay,
I ripped out the flower bed, took everything out, planted everything, put in a layer of topsoil over it, and I'm just letting it go.
Things like that grow amazingly well in a potted garden. I have a friend that was in a one-bedroom apartment on the second floor, and she had about 20 of these potted plants outside, and you really can do it. And that way, if you're someone who moves around a lot, if you're renting, you take it with you.
Yeah. That's a really good advice for somebody. And maybe as I continue to grow my garden, I might do it like that more. I have some mint, and somebody told me mint's basically a weed, and it's going to take over everything if you're not careful. The advice was to put the mint in its own pot, and so I did do that, and it hasn't stopped growing, and I don't really use it enough. I need to start making more mint juleps and cocktails because I don't cook with mint that often.
Mint sugar.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
Mint sugar. That's I take mint and lavender, and I mix it with sugar and just let it sit for about a month.
Wow.
That becomes a very, very nice flavor in bacon. Just adds that little extra something. Not necessarily a strong mint flavor, but it adds a little backbone to it.
Yeah, because mint can be very strong. You can overuse it for sure.
The one at my parents' house is about 6 feet across, their mint plant. It does. Yeah. It overgrows.
Absolutely. And I've got the other cool thing that I learned, green onions grow back really well. You can just go buy green onions from the store, chop them off, and take the white parts with a little bit of the root still in there and just stick them in the ground, and they'll grow back. So there you go. Then you're growing your own green onions. Nils, do you have any experience gardening or anything like that?
Yeah, I also was a proponent of the potted herb garden. And one of the things, speaking of mint, that it also makes, which is great once it warms up, is it makes a fantastic granita if you ever make one of those from scratch. But,
nice.
What I found is as I started growing these herbs, and I had pretty much everyone I could get my hands on for a while, is that it kind of reverse engineered my cooking. I would grow something and then be like, okay, I have this, lemon thyme or something like that. Now, what do I do with it? What does it go with? And then I'd go look up, recipes for this one particular herb, and ended up making things that I probably never would have made otherwise before. I don't know if that's happened to you or not.
I completely agree with that. I oftentimes think, what do I want to cook here? Let me go look at the herb garden and see which herbs I want to cut some off of or pick some, because that will influence what I'm actually going to make. And then the other thing about it is, we were talking before the break about sodium levels and sodium content. I've also found that using fresh herbs right out of my garden, I can use a fair amount less salt because I'm getting flavors there that otherwise, if I couldn't just go out my back door and pick herbs out of my own garden, I wouldn't have those flavors. And so I'd rely more on salt and pepper. Now I can kind of rely on those fresh herbs, and I can do something that's herb crusted instead of just salt and pepper crusted when I throw it on the barbecue pit or something like that.
That's exactly right. That's what I tell people too, is that add as many herbs as you're comfortable with adding. The reason that we have salt is to bring out the flavor. Well, what if you have something else to, not really, salt still is very, very, it's vital.
Absolutely.
But, you can reduce that and add things like, God, with fresh rosemary, is there anything better on most anything except chocolate? Really? And I probably would still eat it on
rosemary
on
chocolate might not be. You could do a little rosemary chocolate sorbet or something like that. It'd probably be very tasty. Yeah, absolutely. Well, without further ado here, let's get to this barbecue sauce. I've been making this sauce for a little while now. Actually, Taco de Paco, one of the food trucks that we talked about earlier, is putting this sauce on a taco. It's called the Bitin' Barbecues taco. It's got shredded pulled pork that's kind of basted in my sauce here. That sounds fun. And then as well as some house pickled jalapenos and onions. And then on a taco, and so it's really cool. And then Frankie's Doghouse as well has the J. Ducote dog, and the J. Ducote dog is a hot dog that's kind of grilled off with some of my sauce, and then topped with freshly shredded cheddar cheese.
Wow.
And some jalapenos as well. So the goal with this sauce was to have a sweet and spicy, what I'm calling a Louisiana style barbecue sauce, which has fresh onions and garlic in it, not granulated or powdered stuff. And then it's got some sweetness from Steen's cane syrup and brown sugar. And then it's got some spice from some cayenne pepper, some Louisiana hot sauce, a little bit of chili powder, and then a couple other ingredients, thrown in there. But it's actually Slappy Mama's pepper sauce that's in it. Slappy Mama is one of my favorite Cajun seasoning companies for sure.
I agree. It's one of mine too.
So anyway, that's the sauce. What y'all think?
I've been lucky enough to have that on the dog at Frankie's Doghouse, and it's fantastic. And one of the things that I really liked about it, one thing, as we were talking about sodium earlier, is it's not really salty.
No.
For one. And the other is
there's a little bit of kosher salt in there, but not much at all.
Well, and the other thing I like about it too is it still retains some texture to it. It's not just smooth, and you can kind of taste a little crunch and get a hint of some of the ingredients that you have in there. It's terrific.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I thought about when I was thinking about what I would want in a sauce that I would be willing to put my name on. And it kind of was that I want it to be that fresh homemade feeling. I want it to have a little bit of texture. There's a whole bunch of store-bought sauces out there that just use granulated garlic and onion powder. And not only do I think it diminishes the flavor a little bit, but it also just, that's what they have to do to get that smooth, silky texture. But that's not really what I'm going for.
And not only that, a lot of them, I just answered this question last night, a lot of them have extremely high sugar content. What happens when you have something with a lot of sugar on an open flame? There's going to be a lot of burning.
Yeah.
So, something like this, I love the Steens that you used in it. That's what I was guessing. It has a really, really, there's a lot of depth to it. It's different from the initial taste to it's really good.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. I'm excited to do a little bit more barbecue with it because I think it's going to go really well with a whole lot of things. I think brisket's the only thing that I might want to design a different sauce for.
Yeah.
But ribs, pork shoulder, chicken, anything like that, I think the sauce will go really well with. And all those things that, pork and chicken, they hold up to a little bit of sweetness a lot more than what you would want to put on beef, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that. With beef, I want something, I don't know, a little bit heartier maybe. I don't know. Don't know the word we're looking for. Wait, does this mean you're inviting us over for a barbecue?
Oh yeah, we should probably do that one day.
Okay,
for
so
sure.
all right, so now it's on the radio. It's official.
I'll cook up another batch of sauce and we'll have a little backyard barbecue and
Sweet.
see where that takes us. You're listening to the BitingBooze.com radio show, proudly presented by Calandro's Supermarket here on Talk 107.3 FM every Saturday from 5 to 6 p.m. Also available on iTunes. Just log into iTunes and search Biting Booze, or go to BitingBooze.com and click on the Biting Booze radio tab up at the top. You can listen to all the archived episodes right there and enjoy it from the comfort of your home or your office or your car or wherever you want to be listening to the radio show. We're going to take our final commercial break today, and we'll be back to wrap up the program. You are listening to the BitingBooze.com radio show on Talk 107.3 FM. We are back on the BitingBooze.com radio show, proudly presented by Calandro's Supermarket. Remember to stop by both Calandro's locations, Government Street and Perkins and Segan. Pick up your king cakes today while the season is still alive. And obviously, if you're doing a crawfish boil or something like that, go by there and get all those goodies that you need to throw in the crawfish boil, the potatoes, the corn, the seafood boil, the mushrooms, what else do you want to throw in it? Onions and things like that, obviously. Have you ever done artichokes?
Artichokes. I've done hot dogs. I've done
hot
boiled
dogs and
eggs.
sausage. I like to take like a good Cajun sausage, Amanda sausage or something like that, and throw it in there. You make some of the best sausage po' boys afterwards. Plenty of garlic, obviously.
Exactly.
Lemons.
I pull it out and I usually make a frittata or something the next day with all of that and with the crawfish and the sausage.
Check you out. Yeah. My favorite post crawfish boil feast is omelets in the morning.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
take everything that was left over from there and you can make omelets the next morning. Thoughts on that, Nils?
Yeah, I think what I usually do is take whatever potatoes are left in that too and make essentially like crawfish hash browns.
Yeah, absolutely.
Boil. That's always pretty good too.
That'll work, man. That'll work.
Oh, I do that with the potatoes. I'll actually I'll boil potatoes in crawfish boil and make a potato salad out of it.
Yeah, I've definitely done that before, or done like Louis hash brown style with the potatoes, or throwing those in the omelets as well. That always works. I think that would be an interesting class for them to teach as a leisure class at the Louisiana Culinary Institute. The LCI is doing a great job just educating the chefs of Baton Rouge and South Louisiana, and they actually get people from all over the country to come in there and go through their formal program. They offer a 2-year degree in the culinary arts, either savory cuisine or baking and pastry. But they're also expanding, and soon they'll be offering a 4-year bachelor degree program in the culinary arts as well. So we're going to have that right here in Baton Rouge. And then the great thing is those chef instructors that they have, these certified chef instructors that are trained to teach culinary students everything that they need to know in the kitchen to go out and be an executive chef. But those same instructors are available for leisure classes and things like that throughout the week, and especially on weekends as well. You can check out that calendar, lci.edu/leisure classes, and see what all is available there. Obviously, you can just check them out if you're interested in going to culinary school, or if you have a loved one that's looking for a career change or trying to figure out what they want to do with their life and they're passionate about food like I am. Obviously, culinary school could be a great way to go. I probably would have been better off getting a culinary degree instead of that master's degree in political science that I wasted 2 years on, since I'm doing nothing with politics or political science. But
the politics of food. Hey,
I'll still take my education where I can get it. I guess it'll never hurt. It's not something that can ever get taken away once you've got it. So.
Exactly. I mean, you can always build on it.
Yeah, absolutely. But the LCI, they're located on Airline Highway. Real close to where Jefferson hits Airline Highway, and they're under construction right now. It's about to be completed, but it's a really cool facility that they have. They're adding on a whole new baking and pastry wing, and then a whole new wing in the back with different, kitchen style classrooms. They've got an auditorium upstairs where it's like a kitchen stadium kind of thing, where they do different cooking demos, and you can kind of see that facility, and it's a really neat space. WAFB actually goes and films a show called 9 Chefs over there. And they do a really cool job with that. But they're also, once the construction's all complete, they're going to put in a big herb garden and everything in the back and kind of incorporate that into their program for the students to really see what it's like to grow some of your own stuff like that. And they're really good about taking their students to the farmers markets and to farms and to places where food is grown or animals are raised, so they get that experience of it as well. It's one of the things that I really think they're doing a great job of, because that's the kind of culinary education that a lot of people don't get enough of, whether it's a culinary student somewhere or just an average person on the street. And so that's some advice that I can throw out there on the radio right now. If you're interested in food, take a little bit of time to really truly learn where it comes from. I think I I was blessed growing up with my dad being the hunter and fisher that he is, because it really taught me to appreciate where that food came from, that we would actually go out and hunt and fish, but we would bring that home, and I would see the process of cleaning it and getting it ready to eat. So, and then cooking it, obviously.
It's a terrific asset for the community, too, because I know when I was coming up, when I was cooking in restaurants, they didn't have any culinary schools around here. If you wanted to go to that, you had to leave town, literally, to do that. And this is the kind of food culture that I think would lend itself to generating lots of really good chefs.
Absolutely. Completely agree with you there. Anna, any closing thoughts?
I was going to say that you said that the Culinary Institute does leisure classes.
Mm-hmm.
My closing thought on that would be, man, if you want to have a really good bridal shower or something like that, pick one of those classes. Don't go to a bar. Actually have something fun and something, that everybody can interact with.
Absolutely. Great for team building. Great for a date as well. That's all the time we have. Thanks for listening to the BiteandBooze.com radio show. We will be back next week. Until then, happy eating.